Hi, this is Ram Dass here and now. I'm Raghu, and I'm with Ram Dass, who's live today, meaning it's not a talk from 30 years ago. It's you right here and now, Ram Dass. Hi.
Hi.
And with the extra special guest today is Mirabai Bush. Mirabai, everybody knows Mirabai. Mirabai, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
It's great to have you all here. So this is in commemoration of this wonderful new book that is going to be out on September 4th, 2018, Walking Each Other Home. And Mirabai and Ram Dass put this book together, and people are just now starting to get it, so we're getting wonderful feedback. Mirabai was just mentioning it to Ram Dass, actually. You know what? I want to talk about how the genesis a little bit of this book, because there was an idea that came at one point that we would like to do, as Ram Dass, we had a wonderful online course with Ram Dass a couple of years ago around aging, and included death and dying. And it was so well received, I thought, wow, Ram Dass you have all this incredible material from over the decades. Why don't we pick the best of it and make a beautiful book out of it? And I thought, who better to put it together was Mirabai. And so we agreed. And then, of course, I had that thought about what it was going to be. Ram Dass, of course, you had another thought about what it was going to be. And Mirabai, I don't think, that's what I want to ask you. I don't think you had a thought about what it should or should not be, but the evolvement of this book is extraordinary in so many different ways. But tell us a little bit, what was in your head that, because you and I talked and you agreed, oh, that'd be a good thing, but maybe I'll make some comments or something, but it completely radically changed into what it is today.
Well, I didn't have a model for it. I was pretty model free when we started out. I just wanted I loved the idea of putting together all what Ram Dass had written and spoken about dying. And as I've had close friends die recently, I was kind of imagining this lovely book on the bedstand, next to whoever was in their last chapter. And so we put it all together, as you remember, but it was a little static. And also we realized in talking about it, Ram Dass and I think you too, Raghu, that Ram Dass has been writing about dying since Be Here Now. And the words are all there from the very beginning. But of course, Ram Dass, as you aged and as you had so many life experiences and so much pain and etc., that that you know about death and dying in a different way now than you did then, even though the words were really all there. So we thought that maybe in conversation, we could capture the subtleties around the difference in knowing and holding it more deeply and fully than when we started out this journey. That sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did have a model, Mirabai, and you didn't follow it, thank God. Okay. But not to make this a big infomercial, but just to let everybody, all you guys listening out there, know, this is a very rich book, because Mirabai sat with Ram Dass many a day, going back and forth to Maui over a couple of years. And in this book, you get a wonderful view, bird's eye view of you, Ram Dass, and your environment in Maui, and
there it is.
There it is. Fantastic. Thank you. So there's a wonderful, as I said, bird's eye view of Ram Dass in in his house and in his environment in Maui. That's just the way you, Mirabai, have characterized it, and the connectivity that it has between you and he. Of course, everybody out there, Mirabai and I were with Ram Dass back when he went back to India the second time. So we and she, of course, has spent a lot of time together. And so you really get that feeling of warmth and connectivity, which is really wonderful. But you also get you get practices. This book is so full of wonderful practices that you put at the end of the book. It's just, and also, not only Ram Dass, from your point of view, as Mirabai was describing just now, from where you are now, but also including excerpts from where you were before the stroke in particular, and that adds to the richness of this book. Okay, that's a 2-minute or 3-minute commercial for the book, everybody. So go out and buy it. That's all we got to say. Sorry.
Thank you.
So there's a few things as I went through it again. Now, of course, I'm really familiar with it. And the beauty is that I went through the book just to see, what things that I'd like to share with you and with people out there. And it was like I hadn't read it before, but I've read it a bunch of times because I would get the manuscript and Mirabai would send it to me and we'd chat about it and so on. Let's talk. There's one thing that I think is integral to you, Ram Dass, and all of us, really. But the way that you had put it back in the day, and this you said just recently, but your experiences around psychedelics really informed a lot of your experiential view of transition, of death. And you said in the book, I glimpsed death a few times through psychedelics. Those times rewrote my life instructions. I love that expression. Can you just talk about it a little bit more?
The first time I took psilocybin with Tim and Allen Ginsberg, and I left them, and the living room was dark, and I sensed somebody in the corner. And the somebody was me. Mm-hmm. Well, it was my social role. And I said, well, I still have my body. And I looked down, and the couch was all there, but my body wasn't there. And I said, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home, because the home was inside consciousness and love. And I met myself there.
So would you say then, in terms of the statement that you made in the book, rewriting life instructions, sounds to me like that identification with the true home immediately superseded the idea that you were a body or that you were mind. Everything that you had believed was real. Through the psychedelic, you realize the true home, which is rewriting life instructions. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's one other, not one other, there's such, I really have to share with people the beauty of some of your writing, about your personal experience, Mirabai, in this book. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to give people an idea of this, because this is something this particular section I really love. And it's just about being with Ram Dass. We sit in silence for a while. We both know that the loss of a child is probably the worst suffering one can experience in this life. Several of our close friends have lost their children. I try to imagine it, but when my son Owen comes into my mind, it closes down before I can even imagine him dead. At this moment, I remember being in India at Maharaji's temple in the 80s when my mother was taken to the hospital. I had been there only a short time, but I had to go home to be with her. I went to Siddhima to say goodbye. I had been so happy there, sitting next to Maharaji's bed with his picture and plaid blanket, drinking chai, walking the paths at cow dust time, watching the sun set behind the temples, chanting along with the kirtanwalas, my heart so open, love so present. But when I said goodbye, I began to cry. I cried as I bowed to Siddhima. I cried as I gathered my things and put them in the car, and I cried as I said goodbye to the staff. I cried in the car for hours with Ramesh, all the way to Delhi. I cried in grief for my mother and for leaving India and for Maharaji and for all the brokenness in my heart. During that stream of tears, I realized that when you open your heart to any one emotion, including happiness, it is open to all emotions, including sadness and regret and heartbreak and grief. And as Maharaji said often, sub ek, it's all one. Beautiful passage, Mirabai.
Thank you.
It's just really lovely. And Ram Dass, what
Yeah.
what you said after Mirabai said that and recounted that to you was, grief is one of our greatest teachers. It cracks us open. That's how the light gets in. Our friend Leonard Cohen wrote a whole song about that. It demands that we look at our relationship with life and our fear of death. It reveals the great healing power of love. Can you both talk about those are easy. It's living grief is one of our greatest teachers. Is probably one of the a big hurdle for people to actually be in the moment with grief. And so, Ram Dass, how do we get in the moment with grief?
This moment. Just this moment. A moment is not a time. A moment is all of it. The moment consists of the weather, the feelings of it in your body, your mind, your heart. And suffering, and suffering. Maharaji had a woman that came in front of him And she was crying. And she said, Maharaji, my life has been suffering, suffering, suffering. And he said, I love suffering because it brings me so close to God. Even grief brings you so close to God. Yeah.
Yeah. You remember those stories of Maharaji? You reminded me when you said that. Different stories about Maharaji when one time he'd be told about somebody that was getting ready to pass, and he'd do something which ended up, something miraculous that would save that person's life. And it was a lot of concern and about that, and he would be checking in on it. And then somebody else, he'd say, okay, she's going to die. That person's going to die. With some slightly to us cavalier vibration on it to the people that were near him. And I remember, I think the stories with Tuari saying, how can you act like that? Are you a butcher? He must have said something really bad, right? About, so what? And then he said, what? Do you want me to act like all of the, what was the word? Do you remember that?
Puppets.
All the puppets, yeah. Do you want me to act like all the puppets? So the wildly divergent ways in which he himself dealt with people passing was extraordinary. So it leads one to believe, perhaps, that there is no whatever's inside of us and the way that we relate with it. There's no rules or regulations around the reality of it. And when he who is living in the reality of it knows, it's a completely other thing, is it not?
Yep.
Yeah. In the book, maybe Mirabai, you want to? I think I don't know who brought this up, but it was around. You remember Don Juan, the Don Juan books, The Way of the Yaqui, and one of the things that I'll never forget about those books was when he talked about always keep death over your left shoulder. And Mirabai, do you remember this in the book? Because you
Sure.
guys did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe talk about that. I think it's an important point as well.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do with the book is help people remember that we're all going to die, and to therefore live your life, every precious moment of it, as knowing that it's going to end. And I'm hoping that, because this happened for me in writing the book, that that it'll help people just be more aware. It'll help people get beyond. Ram Dass has beautiful passages about letting go of fear and getting beyond fear into love. And I'm hoping that as people let go of their various fears about death and dying, that death can be with them and help them live their lives better in it with ease, and grace. So I think that's what he meant, that we spend so much time denying that we're going to die, not thinking about it, and often acting as if we're going to live forever. So I think that's what he was talking about, although it's even bigger than that. And then I think we're hoping that the book will help people in that way.
Yeah. And I know Ram Dass, this is dear to your heart because it's really one of the most important things we've discussed in relation to Love Serve Remember Foundation that was created to continue the teachings. And that is to give everybody, next generation, a chance to really bring these teachings into their day-to-day lives so that they can really, there can be a transformation. And that's been a really important thing. So some people would look and go, okay, well, this is a book about death and dying, love and death. But meanwhile, I'm 20-odd years old, and Jesus, I never think of that. Mirabai, you wrote in the book about Owen, and you talked to him about it.
Right.
What do you think? He's thinking, what he thought about HIV, nuclear, just the big things. Well, now there's a lot of them, though, environmentally and everything else. But it didn't occur to him in the way that you were thinking about it. And so I think this is something, really important in relation to that the book gives, is that one can, the idea of getting into the habit and practice of keeping death over your left shoulder in a way, being able to live more fully in the moment is well expressed here in the book. Ram Dass, you said, "The wisest beings with whom I have made contact in this lifetime all assure me that a soul leaves the physical plane neither a moment too early nor a moment too late. For most of us on earth who strongly identify with our own bodies and personalities, this is hard to accept. If we have not listened deeply enough inside ourselves to know differently, we consider length of life an asset, which makes it difficult to be with the dying without trying to keep them alive." And I think for me, the key thing is those of us, which is all of us, who strongly identify with our bodies and personalities. So I think at a very early age, how important is it to start the work and the practice of which happened to you in a minute with the mushrooms, of course, Ram Dass. You went right to the home base, and from that place, the rest of your life unfolded, and meeting Maharaji soon after. But I think, is it not something that the next generation can become a little bit more aware of? It's not about practicing for death; it's practicing for life.
The soul never is afraid of death. And when your sadhana is finished, you can get to identify with your soul, and then no fear of death, because your soul has experienced death and birth and death and birth. The soul experiences death as a transition. I identify with my soul. I love everyone, everything. I don't have fear. But if I have fear, in my mind, in my thoughts, I love it. Yeah.
Not to death, though, right?
No,
You used to love it to death. I love that. Now it's too violent, you said, and it's just love, surrounded with love. Mirabai, but going from where Ram Dass talks about identification with soul, or whatever, spiritual heart, soul, true self, whichever way anybody else wants to characterize it. Again, I go back to the next generation thinking, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with a book on death? I'm 24 years old. Yet, that's when I said before that working on that re-identification is something that goes a long way to helping us transform our daily lives and working and being able to work with everything that happens to us with equanimity and a completely different view. So tell me what you feel about this regarding how this can really affect people that obviously are young and are not thinking about dying.
Yeah, well, I think that young people actually are thinking about dying more than they used to because, as what Owen said that time was AIDS, guns, and the environment,
Yeah.
and so young people and drugs. So many young people have lost friends already. So there's that. And there's Pete Holmes's blurb said, I've never died. Oh, I haven't died. I've never died. But if I do, I'm going to want to have read this book before it happens. But actually, I think when you're younger, you don't talk about it much and don't think about it much unless a friend dies, or a parent or a grandparent. And I think in those young people who've read it so far, they feel happy that they can, because of course it arises in them. So they're happy that somebody's talking about it in a way that is relevant for them. And of course, the way in which Ram Dass talks about death is relevant no matter what age you are.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I just think, go ahead, Ram Dass.
I think that sitting with a parent in their death is a profound rite of passage.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. I mean, I even see that my 8-year-old granddaughter, Dahlia, is very interested in death. And when our dog died last summer, she was here, and Danny Goldman's grandkids came over too, and we had a funeral, and they wrote a song, and they kind of they walked out with the body of the dog and to we had dug a hole for it, and they sang the song, and they gathered flowers, and they put flowers on her, and they, I could see it was important for them. They were going through it and asking questions. Where did she go? As Maharaji said, where could I go? Yeah, I think it's important from the beginning. And one of the things we talk about in the book, that in our generation, that people never talk to children about it. And children were never allowed to see a person who died or go to a funeral or anything. And I think it's important at each stage of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think what this book gives, again, I keep coming back to this, but I do think it's really important, is all throughout the book, the idea of rejiggering the identification, like what one does to get it through practice to not be so identified with who, the mini me. Some friend of mine called it the other day. The mini me who believes they are the body, they are the emotions, they are the mind, and they're disconnected from what Ram Dass just said, which is, I am a soul. I am not, and that's of course Ram Dass's fortunate karma at a young age to have that mushroom trip with Leary and Ginsberg and come out into that place of home. But I think it is important that practice goes on over a time, so that when you do get to a place where you do really start to think about, geez, I'm, where we're at now, we don't have that much time left. And we hope to be a little less identified with body and mind and emotions and more with soul. So I think that is a big reason why I think people who are next generation can really appreciate this book. And one of the other things that is talked about in this book, which is, Ram Dass, you talked about fear, which is, of course, just ingrained in the human experience, fear of death and fear in general. But the other thing is fear of change. And you said you need to find a place to stand in relation to change where you are not frightened by it. Be with the changes, work with the changes, but at the same time cultivate emptiness, spaciousness, awareness, and clarity. This is what the deep spiritual work of sadhana is about. You talk a little bit about developing that, cultivating that place of emptiness, spaciousness, awareness. Most especially awareness, I think.
Awareness is us. Is us. It's the witness. The mini self is the movie. Of our lives, of our incarnation. The witness back further, back. I use the mantra, I am loving awareness. 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 Loving awareness. Loving awareness. Loving awareness. Loving awareness. That's the soul. Loving awareness. Loving awareness. I am loving awareness. Loving awareness. Loving awareness. Loving And you anything you're aware of, you love. Raghu, I've forgotten your question.
I don't know. You seem to have answered the question. There was no question. No, what we were talking about. I mean, you got so deep, it didn't matter what the hell we were talking about, but it was about change. Impermanence, that horrible word that we are all afraid of and live our lives to avoid. You've just elucidated the antidote to it, which is that deep loving awareness and that practice which you have been prompting through a number of years now, which I tell you, when people write to the foundation, and I'm with you on responding to them, people in real suffering. I can't tell you how many times I talk about cultivating loving awareness, and I lead them to the film that we did many years ago when you first started teaching loving awareness, and shifting your perspective out of your head, out of your ego, out of your mind, into that center of your chest, and being able to. And by the way, in this book, there's a wonderful, for everybody out there, there's a practice that Ram Dass goes through, and Mirabai and Ram Dass, for moving, for using scanning and so on, that we learned mostly actually for me through Vipassana, to be able to move out of your thinking mind into soul, spiritual heart, and just keep on working on transforming your perspective, which is so important. And of course, when I asked about, that's why what you just gave in just before around change and impermanence, having to do with moving into that place, is the perfect answer.
Okay.
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 There is a prescription, and Ram Dass has been given this prescription for many, many, many years, and around what to do bedside with somebody who is in transition. So, Ram Dass, maybe you'll just talk about that for a sec.
Yeah. First rule is to appreciate that their death is their death. Just because you have your own death scenario, don't oppose them, and don't impose your scenario. Sitting bedside to a dying person, love them, and be a rock. Be a rock for them to lean against, a loving rock. Don't pity them. Don't emotional histrionics. Be a loving rock they can lean against in philosophy, and spirit.
And to be that rock, maybe the analogy might be what you said earlier about each one of us goes into the room with our own dying scenario of how it might be, how it should be, and our own reactions, fears, etc. Dropping those at the door is the transformation into the rock that somebody can lean on, that isn't feeding back our own myriad of suppositions about death, fears, etc. Right?
Yep.
You know, you talk about Mirabai in the book. You and Ram Dass bring up. There's a section around what we call the mystery, and because we don't know what happens after we die, we have the example of the great beings that we have been with and their teachings. But the ultimate personal experience of it, no one has until they actually go through it. So, can you talk about what the mystery means and I call it having a real respect for that mystery that might help with fear?
Well, we don't know what's going to happen after death. We have heard from wise beings and thought about it a lot, and but nobody has ever really come back and reported to us. So it's I think it's partly comfort in not knowing, and being in the moment, knowing that we don't know, even though Ram Dass has some really great ideas about what happens after death. And of course, many teachers do. But even if you feel you absolutely don't know, it's about dropping into the moment. And if you're in the moment and open to whatever's going to happen, it doesn't really matter what happens after you die. So it's embracing the mystery, not being afraid of the mystery, being able to live with it and just enjoy it, ride it. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've all had experiences of one sort or another that take us out of our time and space. That is the mystery, and if you start to respect those moments, I think they can be powerful transformers.
Yes.
Right? I just tell one little story. I met the 16th Karmapa, who was just before he died in the early 80s, actually. And he was doing a black hat ceremony, and we would be able to walk right in front of him and he put the scarf on you, the kata, silk scarf. And when I got near him, I just felt Maharaji's presence. It was so powerful. I went, oh my God, this is so, because there is only one thing, as Maharaji said, there's only one thing. And he was in that same bodhisattva place, obviously. So it was a great experience. 4 years ago, of course, he died again in 82 or 3 or something. And then reincarnation happened, which was the 17th Karmapa. Young man. I met him when he was about 30. Well, he's only 33 or something now, so he was 29, 30 then. A few years ago, and we were able to hang out, Sharon and Krishnadas and I, with him in his suite in a hotel when we were visiting, when we were going to the teachings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So at one point, he did the same thing with us. We gave him the silk scarf. He put it over our heads, and he thanked us, and actually held our hand for a minute, thanked us for coming. And when he did that with me, in particular, it was an extraordinary experience. I can't tell you in words, except I knew, holy shit, this is the same thing. Whatever was in that 16th is in the 17th. I can't tell you in words, but deeply experiential place of it. I was gone for hours after that. All of the, and Ram Dass, you yourself have said in talks, similar experiences. And of course, with Maharaji, we had those many, many, many moments of those. And as far as everybody listening out there, there is a trust quotient here. Trust, I mean, again, I've said this a billion times. I trusted Ram Dass when I first met you, and that led me to Maharaji's feet. And that trust is passed from person to person to person. And you talk about it, that love radiates person to person. That love includes trust. And I think that can give us a leg up on getting a little bit more comfortable with, quote unquote, the mystery.
I don't think you need those quotes.
Don't need the quotes.
No.
Okay, I'm getting rid of the quotes.
You can just call it the
gone.
mystery.
Just the mystery, okay. It's dramatic. I'm trying to be a little dramatic, that's all. Oh, God, this is a wonderful book. And, we're at the end of our allotted time here for Ram Dass Here and Now podcast on Be Here Now Network. But there's one thing I love in this book, as much as anything else. It's when you guys went to, there was a Seva concert for Ram Dass. Mm-hmm. What is it? It's a year and a half ago or something.
Yeah.
And Joan Baez was there, and you became friendly with her, Ram Dass in particular, all of you. And she sang a song at the concert called Last Leaf, which is a Tom Waits song.
Last Leaf on the Tree.
Last Leaf on the Tree, which I adore Tom Waits, and I love that song. And the lyrics go, I'm the last leaf on the tree. The autumn took the rest, but they won't take me. I'll be here through eternity. If you want to know how long, if they cut down this tree, I'll show up in a song. I mean, how beautiful is that?
Oh, my God. I love that so much.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It makes me cry.
Yeah, really. It's so fantastic.
Tom Waits was so happy that Ram Dass wanted to use it in the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He sent a message saying he was so happy. He didn't want anything, because for song lyrics, you always have to pay a big fee. He didn't want anything. He just wanted 2 copies of the book, which are on their way to him now.
Oh,
yeah.
Fantastic. I love that. Talk about a true soul brother, Tom Waits. Okay, well, when we're done here and we're going to say goodbye, but I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to play that Tom Waits song. We're going to put it in the podcast.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Oh, great. Can you do that without? Yes.
Tom will be okay with it.
Yeah, he will.
His record company will come after us, and then we'll cut it out if they really get uptight. I can't believe that they would. But Ram Dass, thank you so much, and Mirabai, for being here today.
What happened, I don't know I've never done a Zoom so late in the day. And, it was brightly lit in here. And then we just witnessed the dying of the light.
Yeah.
How
appropriate.
Pretty soon this last light will go out and I will just fade completely.
You'll fade away. Oh, God. Anyhow, thank you guys for writing this book. Okay, that's the bottom line, and sharing with us today. So this is Ram Dass Here and Now on BeHereNowNetwork.com. Ram Dass, and
wow, Ram Dass, this is great. This is like being back in the room again. This is really great.
So we shall say. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Love you guys.
I'm the last leaf on the tree. The autumn took the rest, but they won't take me. I'm the last leaf on the tree. they're already gone. Fluttered to the ground 'cause they can't hang on. And there's nothing in the world that I ain't seen. I greet all the new ones that coming in green. I'm the last leaf on the tree. And the autumn took the rest, but they won't take me. I'm the last leaf on the tree. They say I've got staying power here on the tree. I've been here since Eisenhower, and I outlived even he. I'm the last leaf on the tree. The autumn took the rest, but they won't take me. I'm the last leaf on the tree. I fight off the snow, I fight off the hail. Nothing makes me go. I'm like some vestigial tale. I'll be here through eternity. If you want to know how long, if they cut down this tree, I'll show up in a song. I'm the last leaf on the tree. And the autumn took the rest, but they won't take me. I'm the last leaf on the tree. I'm the last leaf on the tree. I'm the last leaf on the tree.
This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. We appreciate you listening, and we appreciate all the support that you've given us. Please continue that support and donate at ramdas.org. We can then continue to share what Ram Dass has been sharing for all of these years. Thank you.